Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Shootin' the Shift. I'm Nicole Magic and I'm here with my really good friend,
Kristin Johnston.
yay! And we're here to talk to you today about intention, right? This is a good one because what is intention? How to apply attention? And does it actually work if you're not willing to commit to something?
Especially if you're, expanding your awareness and you're getting into sort of like the mystical end of actually creating from the quantum or from infinite potential. Can you manifest without a clear intention? And also, what are the other parts of you that need to be on board, not just your mind, right? Because you think about intention, and for me anyway, it's like focus, it's like mental. And we talked about this in our episode on mentalism. Can you manifest just through your mentality, or are there other facets of your human that, kind of like you said, like willingness or discipline or consistency? I'm not sure. Is intention enough? Is intention alone enough to create a new earth or a new whatever it is that you want to create? So those are some of the things that I think are worth exploring today.
Yeah, and I think if we step back and we take a look at intention as something in action, right? In behavior. And when people have conversations and something is miscommunicated or misinterpreted, and it was, well, that wasn't my intention, right? Because you're asking, is intention enough? And no, I don't think it is enough, because you can intend something and it can be completely taken the wrong way. So if it can be taken the wrong way by another human, guess what? Your intentions coupled with your actions, behaviors, and all of the other things that you do subconsciously, maybe you're actually sending a different message to the universe. So what exactly is your intention?
Yes, and that actually what you said just sparked something in my mind. You said the things that you do subconsciously, right? So much about, this path, this awakening path of transformation is about making the unconscious mind a conscious mind. So one of my favorites, Bruce Lipton, I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard of him. And if they haven't, please go look him up because he's brilliant. He talks about, like the tip of the iceberg being the conscious mind, and it's only 5%. We only see 5%, the tip of the iceberg. The other 95% is subconscious, which it means it's below our awareness. So we're not even aware of what is doing the creating. So the subconscious mind is actually capable of, not capable, but it's responsible for 95% of what we create in our lives. And so if you think about that subconscious mind was actually programmed without intention. It was absorbed in our early childhood. So if we want to become clear manifestors, we have to become conscious of what we're doing unconsciously so we actually can manifest our intentions, right? Like if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, how are you ever going to get clear on doing what you want to be doing so you can create a life that you love?
Exactly. And I talk about this all the time, where 87% of what we think, say, and do is negative. What we hear, what we think, hear, and say, it's negative. And greater than 95% of what we do is subconscious, and the subconscious is 1,000 times more powerful than the conscious. And then to top it off, it takes 7 positive statements to negate just one negative one. So it seems like it's a great setup for failure for the human design. However, that's what your limiting beliefs want you to think. Because we're doomed, we'll never make it, but that's not it. It's, if you can flip the script, if you can change your perspective and then change what's in your subconscious to be positive. So you have to rewrite your subconscious programs. And when you do in a positive way, guess what that's doing? Working 24/7 for you and your success and your growth and everything that you want in life versus the opposite.
Mm. And so much of that opposite too comes from fear, right? Survival. That's kind of like what we're shifting out of, that sort of like that scarcity mindset, that survival. If we're programmed through fear, then of course we're going to be focusing on all the things we don't want because we're trying to self-protect. Where this shift, right? Shooting the shift, conversations for a new consciousness is about how do we shift out of that subconscious self-protection and into intentional creation. Like we have to become aware of those things, because how many times, like you said, Nicole, about the, like 87% of what we think about is negative, it's fear-based, it's
Yes.
stress-inducing, and it's redundant, which means it's like on a cyclical loop. But I think that that's by design, right? Like this idea is like, okay, if I constantly focus on the things that I feel are a threat, then I can constantly protect myself or be super aware of not calling them towards me. But what we don't realize is that by focusing on them so much is we're actually using this really powerful part of our brain to magnetize those experiences. And so I think what we want to talk about today is like, how do we shift our minds, change our brains to focus on that which we do want instead of protecting ourselves from that which we don't? And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Do you think those experiences of getting what I don't want actually serves us, so we can actually get really clear on, well, what do I want? So both of these things do kind of serve us in some way. The shift is in our intention, right?
Right. It starts with that awareness and then your intention, right? So that it's like a stepwise piece, I think. So first, if you're uncomfortable, your body is an amazing alarm system. And it sends off all of these different triggers to tell you, like, okay, so sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. And that's like the first alarm, right? That's like a low alarm. And then when you get nervous about something, anxious and nervous, and now like your stomach is in knots about something, well, that's a louder alarm. It's what is coming out of alignment. What are you not paying attention to? What position are you putting yourself in to create that disturbance? Because it's a disturbance to your system. It's sending things out of whack. So what is actually happening there? When you have the awareness to identify what that is, then you can intend to do something different. And when you intend to do something, then you have to take action to create that. You have to do something in order to initiate the sequence, I like to say.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, like, because certain things that say we have an intention to get out of our comfort zone or do something new, because in order to actually shift our lives, we have to do something different than what we've been doing, right? So starting with the intention or the awareness or having this desire, but then also knowing that if you're human and you're doing something new for the first time, and especially if it's like something that's going to grow you, you're probably going to feel a little bit anxious, a little bit uncomfortable. And so like using that as a barometer for excitement, right? If you feel anxious or you feel uncomfortable, sometimes that's like, oh, I'm doing something new. I'm doing something like my body and my brain doesn't know how to protect me from this, because it's like your body might perceive something new as a threat because your ego doesn't know how to control or predict the outcome, right? So sometimes, at least I've experienced that for myself, sometimes feeling anxious is actually a good thing, but you have to be aware, kind of like you said, like being aware of like, why am I anxious right now? Is it something that I'm intentful on, right? Like for example, trying to think of something that might make a person.
Speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Like public speaking,
Yes.
doing a presentation, feeling nervous at first. The first time I ever taught a Reiki class, I remember feeling, the feelings of anxiety in my body, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was just, this is new, So sometimes, like, if your intention is clear, you know why you're doing what you're doing because there's a goal around it, and you back it up with action, then you move through that feeling. And then what happens is your body starts to recognize that as a comfortable experience. And that's how we grow. We have to move through our own subconscious resistances.
Yeah. So you said a few things that I also want to talk on there, because those resistances, right? If it's not familiar, you will resist it. So that's one of the rules. If it's not familiar, you will resist it. And that's like, you've got to get familiar with it. So you've got to do it over and over again, right? And what happens when you're doing it? You said you got nervous when you were going to teach the Reiki class for the first time, right? This is the first time. So that means there are subconscious things that are coming up to your awareness saying, but wait a minute, but wait, Kristin, don't do this. What if we don't know something? What if we can't answer the questions? What ifs, right? All the what ifs come up and say, wait, hold on. Do we really want to be doing this? Because of fears and insecurities. And those come up, and you're allowed to feel through that, right? It's okay to feel that way. What if you don't know an answer to a question? Simple. I can get back to you on that. Right? You don't have to know everything. That's just one of those human things where we have to know everything. No, we don't. Nobody knows everything. So take a look around. Nobody knows like this much of everything. And it's
Exactly,
okay.
right? And how many times, and I know I've done it, and I'm sure plenty of our listeners have done it, is like you get that feeling of doubt or worry about something new, and then you choose to stay in your comfort zone. You choose not to grow through the experience. And so many of us, that's how we end up staying on repeat. That's how we end up staying the same, as we say no to our opportunities for growth in favor of staying comfortable. So growth is right on the edge of your comfort zone. If you're going to grow, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. So, if you're listening, like, think of an intention. Think of something that you want to do in your life that's going to grow you as a person, because that's the beginning of the shift. The shift
Yeah.
isn't about staying comfortable, right? It's about personal growth and seeing what are we capable of, not just as individuals, but actually, like, as a species. This is in my opinion, this is the evolution of the human race, is to move out of this competition, fear, survival, ego dominated culture, and shift into a more, because personal growth to me it's of the spirit, it's of the soul. The spirit is ever expanding. It's always creating. It's always saying, what else? And not from, I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference in sort of like the ego's desire for more, because that comes from a sense of lack. It's like, if I just get that thing, then I'll be filled. It's
Ooh, the when thens, the if thens and the when thens.
yes, I think about Gabor Mate wrote a book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, and he's referencing it to addiction, but essentially the ego is a bit of a hungry ghost, right? It's like it can never be fully satiated. It's always craving more, but it's craving more from a lack, from a place of emptiness, of like, I'm trying to fill this void in myself, and I'm trying to fill it with things.
Right? The proof. To prove I'm
Exactly.
good enough, right? You accomplish something, it's like, okay, next. Now the next thing, now the next thing. It's always the next thing instead of celebrating where you are.
Exactly. And also the difference, because I think both is growth essentially, but one is the illusion of growth, and the soul is more of, it's more of like, what else can I do? Not what do I have to do to get to worthiness, but what else am I capable of if I am willing to grow, if I'm willing to spread my wings and, move past my resistances to my own growth, because that's the one difference. I actually write about this in Heal the People. The one difference between human beings and the rest of the natural world is that we have a mind that can resist our own growth, and nothing else. If you look at anything else in the world, it is always changing, always evolving. Even things that are decaying are in constant movement and change. And human beings are essentially, we are nature, and our bodies are always changing and aging and shifting, but our minds get fixated on our comfort zones. And so
Yeah. So we want to shift out of that comfort zone and into another space. And how we do that, I can give some technique on how to do that. Because it's really shifting where you think you are, and that anxiety or whatever fear is coming up, and whatever thought is coming into your head that says, well, no, maybe not this time. Why don't I wait? Or I'm not ready. And you mentioned, Kristin, to set the intention, focus on that intention. What was the intention that if you do this, what does it look like in your life, right? And that's what you really want to focus on, is the shift from how it originally, like initially makes you feel, to temporarily overcome it, right? Because it's just this little hump that you have to get over. If you can think about it that way, it's literally a speed bump that you're looking at as like this giant mountain, and you're not a little ant in front of the speed bump. You're a human that can take a few steps over it, and that's it. So if you think about what does that do in your life, if you accomplish this thing, when you were to accomplish this thing, what does it look like in your life? And then hold the emotional feelings of what that looks like, and shift from, and you can even create a trigger. You can snap your fingers, or like sometimes if you do like a little something that's soothing, like stroking your hand or pressing down on a knuckle or pushing on a certain point in your hand, whatever that is, you can use that as a trigger and anchor point to shift from that emotional state of negativity into the emotional states of positivity. So if you think about that experience and what it brings in, go ahead and, like if you stroke your hand, you can just bring in, what does that mean? Well, it's very empowering. So think about that empowering, and do your trigger point, and think about how empowered you are and how much happiness it brings in, and the gratitude that you can have in that instant, and bring that into the now, in the present, and create that sensation within your body. And then if you continuously or periodically, trigger that, let's say in the morning, wake up in the morning and start your day with that feeling. It'll motivate you and keep you inspired to keep going and do those things. And it'll actually shift you into the space of wanting that feeling all of the time, and keep you moving in that direction subconsciously.
And you're anchoring, using the anchor points, you're making it a physical experience, right? Like it's not just an idea anymore. If you're adding in that physical component, you're embodying the new frequency.
You're bringing it to the present, which does what? It attracts exactly that thing to your present.
I love this stuff so much because it's also a good reminder, because we've talked about this too, the more difficult parts of shifting, and how as long as you're human, you can get discouraged. You can get, say you've been trying to manifest something and you spend time reaching those elevated emotions, and maybe you're not seeing what you want manifest quick enough. You can easily get discouraged. So having these conversations is a really good reminder to do the work. The people who see the results are the ones who do the work, and the work isn't always physical, but it's a beautiful synergy of mental focus and applied discipline and consistency. So we were talking about this earlier too, the same way that the brain, like if we experience a little bit of anxiety, the brain will want to pull us back into our comfort zone. So like, don't go through that experience, lean back into your comfort zone. The same thing can happen when we've done a lot of intention work. Is like, well, we're focused, and we're acting, but maybe we're not seeing the results quick enough. So we withdraw our attention and plug it into a new focus. And this can happen a lot, especially for people, who are highly creative. Like I'm very highly creative. My mind is always busy. So I can tend to have a little bit of like ADD, right? Like I'll focus, and then I'll shift focus. So what are some things, like I liked what you were saying, Nicole, about those anchor points and remembering why you're doing what you're doing, like having that clear intention of what what is it that you want to create for yourself, and having anchor points for reminding yourself. Like literally think about the just that word, the etymology of reminding, revisiting your own mind, refocusing your intention. Right. What is my goal? Not what don't I want out of fear, but what do I want out of joy, out of bliss? Because if we think about those emotions and how they broadcast through the energy field, not just through our physical body. Our physical body is an instrument for our energy, but our energy is first. So if we're experiencing those elevated emotions of, like you had said the word empowerment, right? It makes me feel empowered. And then using that as an anchor point, that feeling of empowerment or that feeling of gratitude or that feeling of joy is going to elevate your frequency. And the higher your frequency is, the more energy you're investing into your intention, and the body doesn't have to work as hard because it has the energy on its side. I hope that makes sense. That was kind of like a long tangent.
No, it makes total sense. And it's like when we're talking, I'll go back to the focus point, right? Where when you're focused, your mind can't be racing. When you have focus and intention, right? You have to be, and this is part of that one of the elements of manifestation. It's focus, energy, and force. And force has several components to that. And it's not force like a physical force. It's a different kind of force. But focus really is about clearing the mind. So clearing the clutter of the mind, relaxing that mind. And when that mind is not producing any negative thoughts. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, well, I could be doing laundry right now. That's a negative thought. It's clearing that mind and just being completely present. And this takes effort. It takes consistent effort to get there. So you don't just sit down and say, oh, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes and I'm going to be completely devoid of any negative thoughts, and I'll maybe completely relaxed and present. It's maintaining that ability to think while not having and hearing your thoughts. That's kind of a weird space, right? Being able to think without hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, well, but it's like, it's the ability to stay completely and totally present with the task at hand and knowing that if it, like having that regular consistency and that discipline with the clear intention of, if I do this wholeheartedly right now, and then when you are doing laundry, do that wholeheartedly right then, having those, my mom calls it segment intending. She's very good at manifesting the things that she desires because she does this thing called segment intention. While she's in a segment, she gives her full focus and her full attention to that which she's doing in that moment. But she knows, okay, these are the things, she has those intentions of like, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish. And while I'm focused on one, I am not focused on the other, because when it's time to do the other segment, she will have all of her energy focus there. And like you said, that actually requires consistency and discipline and focused mind
Yes.
power, like focused intention. These are beautiful practices. It's easy to have conversations about this stuff. It's a whole other thing to apply these things to your life. But when you do, and you do them with consistently, you will see the fruits of your labors. You know,
Right. Because remember, 95% or greater amount of your time is spent doing subconscious things. So what you're doing is you're intentionally, consciously being present as much as possible to decrease that amount of time that you're subconsciously in a negative space, right? And flipping that script around into a subconscious positive space. But in order to do that, you've got to bring some of that subconscious to the conscious, change it up, and put it back into the subconscious. So you're decreasing the amount of the percentage of time that you're subconsciously doing negative things.
Now, I have a question for you, Nicole, and I actually think that this could segue into a beautiful next show because I think it's so critical to not just awakening, but to be, making your subconscious conscious and shifting your life. How much of this do you think comes back to the inherited childhood program? Like, how much of this comes down to healing the inner child?
Oh, so much. Because if you think about it, from birth to age 7, we are, as children, and scientifically speaking, we are in these brainwave states that are basically in a hypnotic state. We're being programmed with everything. We're absorbing everything because we know nothing. We're a clear slate. We're designed to learn from what is around us. So whatever our environment was, however we were nurtured or not nurtured, all of these things come into play, and we create our own script of what meaning we have assigned to different things that we have witnessed, have been involved in, behaviors around us, words that have been said to us, around us, by us, like situations that we've just witnessed or been a part of. Parents fighting. You assign a meaning to it. You assign a meaning to if you come up to your mom on the phone, she's working, maybe she's got a client that's on the phone and does one of these, not right now. You can easily, as a child who has not understood like the totality of the situation in a mature fashion, will assign a meaning that I'm not important enough for mom to pay attention to me and hear what I have to say. I'm not heard.
That's actually a beautiful way to put that. It's not necessarily what happened, it's how we internalized what happened. And then
Yes.
those become the subconscious tapes that we will use to create our future unconsciously. So
Yes.
this shift in consciousness, becoming an intentional creator, is really about allowing those subconscious beliefs to come up to the surface and then choosing to rewrite them to move through the discomfort of those experiences. Because when we're a child and we have those moments of whether it's rejection or shame or fear, we make these vows that say, I won't do that again because I want to spare myself the discomfort of that emotion. But to get to the other side of that is we have to move through that emotion as adults. And just like that, we talked about earlier, like moving through anxiety or moving through, shame. So as you're breaking these subconscious vows or belief systems, you are probably, if not definitely, going to feel uncomfortable emotions that you have rejected and placed in the subconscious for a reason. But if we are going to bring our energy into the light of consciousness and become intentional creators of thriving lives, we have to be willing now to move through the emotions that we stunted when we were little, and knowing too that we have tools now. We have tools now that we didn't have then. You know, we protected ourselves from those emotions then because we didn't have the tools. Present day, we have a lot more tools at our disposal. So I would say use those uncomfortable emotions as a barometer too, for like, oh, this is actually a good thing. This means I'm moving past my own subconscious limitations, right?
Absolutely.
Limitation doesn't exist in the spirit. There is no limitation to your spiritual endeavors. There's no limitation to your ability to create in your life. The only limitations we experience are the ones that we place upon ourselves. And if we're bound by our limitations, the only thing is if we're going to fight for our limitations, we get to keep them. And I don't know if limitation is something I want to keep consciously, maybe subconsciously, but so I would say that if anything, I hope that this conversation inspires people to, that being uncomfortable isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a requirement for growth,
Yes.
to see it as an invitation as opposed to something to avoid or move away from.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when something comes up for myself, I go, oh, who are you? What are you? Where are you coming from? Right. And we just have this little conversation and it's inquire about it and learn about it. It's an experience for you to be able to grow in it. And if you look at it that way, it's not so uncomfortable anymore.
If you enter into it with curiosity, right?
Yes.
So what is this teaching me? What is this moment about? And
Why now?
yeah,
Right? What am I ready for? Because it always seems to be like something comes up when you're ready for something greater.
mm,
So
yeah.
if you celebrate that part, that wow, I'm growing again, even more than yesterday. Sometimes it's like, what is happening? And this is great. And what do I get to accomplish today because of this?
Yes, and if you are living a conscious life, you're gonna always feel like you're on the edge of your comfort zone. Because it's like getting comfortable can't really be part of the equation as much as probably the inner child in all of us would love it to be that way. If you are like going after your dreams in life, you're gonna always be on the edge of that comfort zone. You're always gonna have that little nudge of like, what's next, what's more, what's greater, and hang out with people that are doing the same thing, because like I hang out with Nicole and I get so inspired, and there's certain people that I see in my life just moving through their fears, moving through their discomforts, changing themselves, and I'm like, holy shit, like that's inspiring. That's the shift. Hang out with shifters. There's always going to be resistors. There's always going to be people who live in fear. There's always going to be people who resist their growth. That's okay. Our job is not to change other people. It's to align with the people who inspire us to grow. That's what I think this shift in consciousness is about. Taking your power back, deciding what you want for yourself, getting really clear and focused, and believing that we are powerful beings. We can have the desires in our hearts as long as we have the information, right? We have to have the knowledge, and then we have to apply the knowledge and turn it into wisdom. So we're moving through. Joe Dispenza says it beautifully. He says you move from philosopher to initiate to master, right? So you first kind of, you get the ideas, you get the information, you think about them, you get the intention, you get the focus, and then you get the initiation. You get those moments in your life that challenge you, that push you, that that require you to take new action.
Experience.
Exactly, the experience, and then you revisit it and you revisit it and you revisit it, and then you become the master, and it no longer is uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah.
Something you might have been afraid of 2 years ago, now you're like, oh, that's a breeze, what's next? That's the life I want to live.
And the life that we are constantly living, right? Just at different levels of it. So it's the constant shift. Everything is always in motion.
Exactly.
So what do you want to be? A resistor or a shifter?
Just don't be a shift head.
Don't be a shift head. No.
That's what I always say. It's okay if you want to be a resistor, resist. You want to be a shifter, shift. Just don't tell other people how they should be shifting, because then you're just a shift head. So don't
Yeah.
be. But I'm curious. I want to hear about the intentions of our listeners. Like, what are you guys manifesting in your life? What are your intentions? What are the things that you're calling into your experience? And what are the actions that you're taking to make those intentions a reality?
Yes, because curious, shifting minds want to know. You might actually find somebody who's in the same situation and, could connect and be each other's shift buddies. You
Yeah.
never know.
Exactly. And just a reminder, Nicole and I are doing another cosmic light body activation at Quantum on October 14th. It's a Friday. So if you guys are around, we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, please do. It's always a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to shift in a cosmic way.